What's up guys, Landon here from the Full-Time Filmmaker team, and today I'm going to show you how to properly clean your camera. So to simplify things, I chose 3 parts of the camera that typically need the most cleaning: the sensor, the lens, and finally the camera body. And by the way, all the things I'm going to use to clean our camera can be found if you hit the kit link that I provided here in this lecture. Now we're going to start out with the camera sensor, but before we get into it, let me just say that you should not clean your sensor unless it's visibly dirty. The sensor is arguably the most delicate part of your camera, and it's extremely prone to scratches. Now we're going to be using the proper tools and cleaning materials, but you still run that risk. Now a good way to check if your sensor actually needs cleaning is to take off the lens and point the camera at a white wall or something fairly bright, then snap a quick photo. Now you might have to transfer that photo to a bigger monitor, but if you notice any water or dust marks, it's probably about time to clean the sensor. If it's not dirty, I'd recommend just not even touching it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is make sure our sensor is visible. Now if you're cleaning a mirrorless camera, then your sensor is already visible, but for this 1DX there's a mirror sitting on top of it, so we need to get that to go up. Also, if you have the EOS R, for example, there's a covering that spreads across the sensor when the camera is not in use, so you'll need that to go up as well. So to do this on a Canon camera, we're going to go to our menu and then find the wrench icon. Then we'll look for a setting called sensor cleaning. If you're on a Sony camera, scroll to the toolbox icon in your settings and then select cleaning mode. And if you're using any other camera brand, just scroll through your menu and you should find something similar. So now that the sensor is visible, we're going to grab our Rocket Dust Blaster, give it a few squeezes, and then hold our camera upside down and blow upwards into the sensor. Now it's important that you face the camera downwards so that any dust will fall away from the sensor. Next, we're going to be using this very specific sensor cleaning kit. It comes with some wipes and a squeegee-like tool that'll fit perfectly over the sensor so you won't get any streaks when you wipe it clean. Now I'd highly recommend using a kit like this because it'll minimize the risk of damaging the camera sensor. Also, make sure you're getting the correct size, so if you're shooting on an APS-C camera like the Canon SL2 for example, get the cleaning kit for APS-C sensors. I'm going to go ahead and pull out our cleaning swab, and then I'm actually going to dab a few drops of this sensor cleaner onto the edge of the swab. And you want to get just enough until it's visibly wet. So we'll go ahead and set that aside and then grab our sensor right here, and all we're going to do is set it on one side of the sensor, very lightly pressing down and wiping it across. And then we'll go ahead and wipe it in the opposite direction. And honestly, that's pretty much it. You can do a few more wipes if there's any more visible marks. You can also grab a dry swab and wipe it across if the wet swab left any streaks. But in our case, it looks just fine, so we'll leave it be. And again, if you want to make sure that the sensor is in fact clean, you can take another blank photo with the lens off and look at it on a computer screen just to make sure there's no smudges or dust marks. All right, now let's move on to the lens. Now, if you want to see if your lens needs cleaning, go ahead and attach it to your camera, and then you're going to turn the focus ring to infinity, and you're going to point it at a white surface once again. If there's any significant dust marks and splotches, they'll show up here on the screen. All right, we'll go ahead and detach the lens from the camera body, and we're going to go ahead and grab our Rocket Dust Blaster. And we're going to get as much dust off as we can just using this dust blaster. Again, we're pointing the optics of the lens downwards, and we're blowing upwards. And then go ahead and get both sides. And if your dust blaster isn't getting all of the dust, you can use a special lens brush, usually made with camel or goat hair, to lightly brush the glass. So this is what I have here. I'm going to go ahead and lightly brush it like that. Also, make sure you don't touch the brush with your fingertips because the oils on your fingertips will be left on the brush, and then you're basically just brushing your lens with the oil from your skin, and it's kind of counterintuitive, so make sure you're not touching the actual brush. And then for any finger smudges or watermarks on the lens, I'd highly recommend either using a carbon lens cleaning pen like this one right here, or you can use lens wipes or a microfiber cloth and some lens cleaner. Totally up to you. Whatever you're using, just make sure you're wiping the smudges lightly, and if you're using any kind of solution, use it sparingly because the coating on your lens can be damaged if there are too many chemicals on it. We got a little bit of a watermark right there, I can see. Looks like for this spot, we're going to need to use a little bit of lens cleaning solution. So I went ahead and dabbed that on. There we go. Got that watermark off just fine. And then I'm going to use the dry side of this microfiber cloth to get that residue off. Very nice. One last Rocket Duster. That side's perfect. Go Go ahead and look at this side. Got a few little splotches there. It's still wet from the lens cleaning solution. Again, we're using this very sparingly, so I'm only going to get these spots that I see. Just very lightly scrubbing this. Gonna grab the dry side of this microfiber cloth once again. Get rid of any of those streaks. All right, and then one last thing with the Rocket Duster. And that lens is the cleanest I've probably ever seen it. So that's it for camera lenses. And if you want to clean the rest of your camera body, a can of air like this is probably your best tool to get into cracks like the memory card slot or the buttons. I'd recommend keeping it away from the delicate parts of your camera body like the viewfinder and the screen though. For those parts, you can use a microfiber cloth and some lens solution or the carbon pen. Just make sure you finish it off with the Rocket Duster or your brush. All right, that pretty much wraps up this video. Again, links to all the cleaning products that I used can be found if you hit the link provided in this lecture. And as always, if you guys have any further questions, please let us know.